Hello everyone, I Shalisha from 11th class of Divyapath school with my friends Palak and Heth. Welcome you all to the Heroes of Ahmedabad season 2. Today we have a very special guest with us. He is a very well-known psychiatrist, a public speaker and de-addiction expert trained in de-addiction course at Nimhans Institute. His contribution and hard work can be seen for the younger generation's mental health. We are keen to learn about his journey, hear about the challenges he has faced and take some very valuable advice for us. With lots of love and honor, please welcome Dr. Parth Vaishnav sir. Welcome sir.
Hello, thank you.
So sir, what inspired you to take psychiatry as career?
Hey Shelly, thank you so much first of all. If you consider that I'm a part of this series called Heroes, and I would really consider myself more of a soldier though. Hero would be too much of a tag to give me at the beginning of my journey. It's been 11 years since I'm a psychiatrist, and it's a existential question really, that why did I choose to be a psychiatrist? To be fair, to enter a medical field was always a dream, because I think that back then when we used to study, I always saw a very common phenomena that Dr. Sahib, that Sahib automatically comes. So I thought that it seems to be a study which earns you respect, and at any point of time in my life I thought that respect is one of the most important things. So after self-respect comes the social respect. So becoming a doctor was pretty natural that way. Sadly I was not that gifted a student as Shelly is, so it took me way more hard work than a normal student would need to get to a medical science field. After that there were many options, like I wanted to be a cardiologist, but after MBBS you have to study 7 years to be a cardiologist. So that was not something I was looking for. Then I was looking for some shortcuts. And then of course I have inspiration in my family. I come from a family where my father is one of the most illustrious psychiatrists of India. So I looked at that branch and I thought that if I want to study a specific organ of the body, why not the brain? Because that seems to be the only organ which is not studied much, not understood much. Plus this seemed to be a branch wherein people were not into the branch out of a choice. I'll be fair, psychiatry, when you look at counseling of MBBS students and when they choose a subject as MD, MS, psychiatry is at the bottom. Like many people don't choose it, people have to take it because they want to do post-graduation. I thought that someone needs to be in this branch with an interest. If you're interested, then you can make some change, which I was always looking to bring to any branch that I go to. So that is how psychiatry happened, probably. And then in psychiatry, I thought that there are too many subgroups. Let's say in psychiatry there is general psychiatry, there is women's mental health, there is child psychology and child mental health, there is addiction psychiatry, geriatric psychiatry, sexology. So out of all the options, I thought that I would want to specialize in something which is like future. And looking at the young population of India, addiction was always going to be a very big problem someday. And that is how psychiatry happened, and then my fellowship in addiction psychiatry happened. Purely out of interest, curiosity, and to learn something. So even today I think that my college has taught me 50% of the things, and even today the remaining 50% I am learning every day from every patient that I see.
We all know your father is also a very well-known psychiatrist. So was it like doctor ka beta doctor, or was it your own choice?
Nepotism is a very complicated question if you ask me. But then always remember that when somebody is very illustrious in your family, you can either become an Anant Ambani or you can become an Abhishek Bachchan. With due respects, both are really great people. But then at the end of the day, you need to have enough focus, or let's say enough interest to make big in a specific branch. I always look upon him as an inspiration, and I would say that way back then, yeah, financially speaking, it was difficult for me to go to some other branch or invest, and because he was always there. So investment was not required because I come from humble beginnings. I have not been born in a silver spoon. We have seen our hard days. So taking up a branch where a setup is already there, or something that I can take forward to or add up to, let's say, was there in my mind. If I, let's say, go for cardiology, then a setup would need, in current scenario, it is say 10-15 crores. And we don't have access to that much money. And I was never going to be someone who does job for someone else. I was always going to be working for me. So I would say that I chose becoming a Parth rather than an Abhishek or Anand.
So you do this famous mental health series on Hey Parth Official. So how did you think of it?
Yeah, so that journey is pretty interesting. I am a big fan of Krishna, and Bhagavad Gita is what I have read a many number of times, and there are many versions of Bhagavad Gita. And then came lockdown, and with lockdown came lots of mental health issues. And I have no shame in accepting that I myself suffered from some during the same period when I had COVID for the first time, because there was lots of fear and anxiety of what would happen during COVID, post-COVID. There was not much of an information. Back then, My Gita by Devdutt Patnaik. So I had heard a lot about it, that it's a very corporate version of Gita, but never read it. And reading that helped me a lot through my times of COVID period and even post that, because of many issues that I had faced. Now, I still remember that when I was a kid, let's say I was in junior KG, and I was very enthusiastic to participate in various fancy dress competitions in the school. The first role that I had played in my life was of Arjun. So I had been Arjun, and I think I was 4 or 5ish, and I had this role in which the dialogue started from "Hey Parth, tu kayar na tha." And this is the time while I am reading Bhagavad Gita, and then a friend told me that if you do so much of work, why not have an official handle where you can put stuff and people can know. And there are lots of discussions that you should do it in Hindi and Gujarati, that will make you viral. Hindi and English, that will make you viral, because Gujarati is not cool. I was like, I would do in Gujarati in that case, because if that is not cool, I would want to be a trendsetter someday. And then I went through internet, and there was not much stuff about mental health on the internet in Gujarati language. Or if it was there, it was not from legitimate people, like experts, let's say. There are people who were self-proclaimed experts. So there comes a time when, like, I chose the name Dr. Parth Vaishnav as the handle. It was not available. And then I was like, dejected. And I was like, hey Parth, tu kayar na tha. I'm like, hey Parth. So this seems to be a good name, and that is how it happened. The basic idea is never to get famous on the internet or get something out of it. Even if one video gets me a comment wherein people say that they learned something, or they knew something new about a specific disease, a mental condition, or even, let's say, a general thing. For example, I am a very big opposer of motivation. I am a big proponent, or let's say a supporter of inspiration, and they are completely different. So, such concepts, when I try to put it on the internet, I do get trolled many a times. I get some messages which are not very pleasant to listen to. And I'm like, it's not made for you. So, the whole idea of generating content on mental health in a way that this generation can connect with is the basic idea, and I hope I do well with what I'm doing.
What skills and qualities do you believe are most important for someone pursuing a career in psychiatry?
Patience, I think of everything. So even I tell my patients कि patience हशे तो patient नहीं रहो, patience नहीं हो तो जिंदगी आकी patient रहो. So this is a very common thing I tell my clients. I think that psychiatry per se is a very interesting topic and a very misunderstood one. Basically because people say that we are mind doctors, and anatomically I have never seen an area in the brain called mind, and there is a confusion. Then what do you treat? You treat an area which doesn't exist. So I would say that we are brain doctors, but let's say more of brain functioning doctors. So keeping the patience, first of all, to learn and listen to a client. The patient is not ready to talk to you. They don't come out of interest or desire, like someone would go to an orthopedic surgeon to get a broken leg fixed, or someone would go to a diabetologist and get their sugar fixed. Patients usually don't come with their problem. A client comes with a relative, and the relative is worried, or a caregiver or a friend, and they are worried about the patient, and the patient is in denial. They're like, we don't have a problem, why do you want to talk to us? Patience is there, that if you get impatient, okay fine, they don't want to talk, then we don't want to treat you. No, if patience is there, then you can connect with the person. So the basic quality is patience. Second, empathy, I would say. So many of people who meet me ask me that if you meet so many negative people throughout the day, doesn't it affect your brain? So I'm like, no, there is difference between sympathy and empathy. So if I sympathize with someone, oh, so bad with you, I hope it doesn't happen with me. So this is sympathy. Empathy means, oh, this is so bad with you, I hope I can help you. So I don't get carried away or enter the shoes of the person who is suffering. I can see that they are suffering, but I'm not responsible for their suffering. Maybe I can be the reason that they come out of their suffering. So second would be empathy. And third and most important thing, interest, to be a good psychiatrist. Because as I said earlier as well, if people are not interested in this branch and they come out of force, okay, there is no admission available in any other branch, let me come to psychiatry. I think this branch got maligned because of that. And now I see lots of young people entering into this field with lots of interest. So I think that the future belongs to really interested patient and empathetic psychiatrists.
So, what is the most challenging aspect of the field?
Every day is a challenge if you tell me, because see, many people think that, and especially if I talk about the Gen Z, you people belong to Gen Z. Anybody who is born after 95 is Gen Z, anybody who is born after 2020 is generation Alpha. So I think that currently we'll have people, Gen Z will be coming into working force. They already started coming into working force, and I see that people are restless all the time. The biggest challenge in this branch is that like you grow a tree, a patient, every client is treated like you saw a seed and then you wait and then you let the tree grow and you don't lose hope. The biggest challenge here would be that the client or the relatives would always lose hope. As a doctor, your job is to keep the hope going on well amongst the patients, among the clients, so that they don't become like they lack hope. Patients, when they consult us, they have complete denial. So the challenge is to break the barrier of stigma, let's say. Because even today in a country like India, many people think that this is because of some evil spirit or this is because of some black magic and somebody has entered inside the body. So very big challenge would be that in a country where culture is so rich but so much misunderstood, explaining them that psychiatric problems or mental health issues are scientific problems and not merely brought upon by a patient because of their own lethargy. So the challenge of fighting the resistance against stigma, fighting the resistance against denial of illness, fighting the resistance against how the patient accepts something and then helps you to help them. Because it's like if they don't help me to help them, I cannot just get them out of their problem. So I think that as we go, the stigma is reducing, but it's still there, and that's a very big challenge that a psychiatrist we face. Plus the whole stigma that this treatment is mainly to shut down the brain of people, or they're addictive in nature, or the medicines never stop. And I've never seen that. And that is a very big challenge, that convincing a patient that yes, you have an illness for which there are no laboratory tests. However, this is from the history that you give me, I diagnose you and this is the treatment that you take. So the whole basis of this branch is itself challenging, because I don't have an X-ray or a blood report or an MRI which proves the illness. It's just their behavior which proves the illness. It's a very big challenging aspect.
How does a typical day look like for you?
Like yours, I would say. So the sun rises for me and the moon sets at its time for me as well. But let's say that a typical day would be wherein I personally believe that if somebody is into a specific field, they have to set an example. So I believe in lots of physical fitness, because that gives me the energy mentally and physically to help my clients. So lots of exercise when the day starts, and then as the day goes forwards, a typical day would be compartmentalization. So rather than looking at the nuances of a patient's history and their personal problems, I compartmentalize their problems into various disorders that they might be suffering from. And I have solutions as per the compartment of the problem they come up with. Because they don't get carried away into the talks of a patient. They would want to talk about a specific topic in detail, which might not be important for their treatment. So we want to get them focused back, get them on track. Work hard. You know what? Nothing is easy, neither fame nor money. So work hard is a very typical day. And lots of time with people with whom you can bond really well, because emotional bonds, connections, relationships, they all give you energy. So a typical day should have some time, even if less quantity, a good quality time with people with whom you bond well. That's a typical day. And a psychiatrist is not the saddest person on this planet, believe me. I think psychiatrist is the one who treats the saddest person on the planet. So like a doctor, yeah, it's a hectic day. You have lots of responsibilities, you have less holidays, you have less off days, you work on sick days, and you don't give sick leave to yourself that, sir, I'll not be coming today because I am sick, because you are the boss where you work. So a typical day would be, let's say, fighting the resistance that the society provides, like anybody does. Everybody does that, I guess. I do nothing extra. I just enjoy whatever struggle comes in. That's it.
In your profession, what generational gap do you notice among your patients?
Yes, a lot. I think that younger people connect more with me, and basically because of the idea that I have studied a lot about Generation Z, their psychology, and I feel that this is one of the best generations that has ever come on this planet. But there are times that people who are older to me, 10, 20, 15 years, they would not understand some of my concepts because they feel that, oh, this doctor seems to be just too forward and he's like, letting my child do certain things which are not fine. So yeah, generational gap would always be there in any field, even in our families, we all face generational gap. So even in the field of psychiatry, you would face generational gap. I remember my early days when I was a very young psychiatrist, and that first line from the first patient was, "Arey, to bablo chhe, aa kaise treat kari shakse?" And I was like too shocked. Okay, yeah, I am 27, but I am an MD doctor. And that client was 64, my first client. So the client was very clear that he's just a kid. How does he treat me? But then you grow over your stretcher. It doesn't chronologically age. You mentally age or mature enough so that people find that the generational gap won't exist. So even today my job is to be the bridge between those parents and children, wherein the children feel that the parents won't get me and the parents feel that the child won't get me. So I am not the generation gap, I am the bridge between them. So I don't face much of it lately, but yeah, it just gets better as you age.
So how would you describe the current generation, the Gen Zs and the Gen Z plus?
There are lots of positives about Gen Z, let's be very clear. I think this is the generation which got access to technology very early in their age, and just like different ages, like the stone ages, the industrial ages, the agriculture age, I think we're in the age of information. So people go online and they search about things and they know about things very early in their age. Nowadays podcasts, blogs and review articles, all of them are so easily available. Let's say I remember my younger days and there was like this British library and MJ library, which were the two best libraries of Ahmedabad. So if you need to study or research on any material in depth, you have to go to those libraries. Now libraries are there in front of you at your fingertips. So I think that this is a generation which has access to knowledge and information like no other generation. I think evolutionary, the generation has started learning faster than any other generation. If I go through your maths and science books, I would not pass the 12th standard exam, I'm very sure. Because I belong to a generation wherein this was not a part of our curriculum, which literally proves that the IQ levels have gone better, correct? I feel that this generation is more ambitious than any other generation ever, and that is how you see that younger people disown their jobs and go for startups, or they are like, we would want to work for ourselves rather than do something for people and get nothing out of it. So I think this generation has better self-esteem than any other generation because they feel that we should get our own dues. So if you ask me that if I was 24 and offered a job for 30,000-40,000 rupees, I would have picked it up, even though that was not my expertise. If at this juncture a 24-year-old is asked that they'll be paid 50,000, but the job they are in is not the profile they have studied, they'll refuse the job. So I feel this is the most focused generation that will only go to places where we add up things. Two things which are problems with this generation. First is impatience. And I think we'll go to an era of Amazon now, wherein they want that people think and you get the item as soon as you think it. So impatience is bad. So I give an example that this is the same generation who at a crossroads of a red light would keep on honking. And I'm like, why? It's a red light. He says, I'm in a hurry. I said, where do you want to go? And he's like, nowhere. I said, why are you honking? I just want to get off this place. So that is impatience, first of all. And second is instant gratification. So this generation believes a lot in the principle of instant gratification, which means they need pleasure and they need it now. And the smartphone gives access to lots of pleasure and now. There are applications for everything. It's funny, there is an application of how to sleep as well nowadays. And it's one of the most trending applications on the internet. So the problem, only two problems, which is impatience and instant gratification, and every generation had their problems. Like insecurity was for millennials. Millennials will always insecure about will they make it large? Are they good enough? So that is overcome, and I would say that doesn't make it a lesser generation than any other. Every generation would have something which they have to resolve. So Gen Z resolves this and then Alpha will have some other problems. So that is how evolution works.
You constantly use the term like red light and green light. So what is it?
Oh, great. So I make reels on Instagram and I never script anything. I never believe that I'll sit down and write a content and then refine it as per the SEO specifications of a website or a social media. And I personally am someone who instantly reacts rather than prepares. So for example, if I go to lectures in schools or colleges, I never ask for the topic from the beginning. I go there and ask the principal or the teacher, what are we talking about today? Because I feel that I don't go there to give a lecture. I go there to talk. Maybe if I talk, they would want to talk back to me, and then there is some possible dialogue. So it just happens that it was a rainy day then at that time, and I had lots of ideas because I was stuck up into red light for a very long time. And I just take up a camera. It was Ganesh Chaturthi. That is when this whole thing started. It was Ganesh Chaturthi. And I just pick up the camera and say that it's Ganesh Chaturthi. Oh, I am stuck up on a red light. It's Ganesh Chaturthi. I hope that તમે લોકોના વિઘ્ન હરતા બનો અને તમારી જિંદગીમાંથી વિઘ્ન કરતા લોકો જતા રહે. So that is the first time I put a reel because Ganesh Bhagwan is called Vigna Harta for all of us. And then it's just like people were like, sir, we enjoy that spontaneous content more. So every time there is a red light and there is a huge queue ahead of me, so the camera suddenly pops up and there is some area of the brain which awakens and I spontaneously speak and upload it. That's how it happens. It's never scripted. I never think about it. So I think the recent one was when a friend of mine was calling me and telling me about the Ambani wedding. You know, people came up and I was like, dude, you're calling me every day to talk about the Ambani wedding and both of us are not invited there. Where are we discussing about it? And then an idea pops up that, hey, everybody is talking about the Ambani wedding, and then the camera comes up and I'm like, oh, you know, Ambani wedding joya. So everything is very spontaneous. So that is how the idea comes. So I think had there not been Ahmedabad traffic, it would have never come out of my mind. Thanks to them.
Can you describe a particularly memorable experience where you felt you made a significant impact in a patient's life?
I won't be boastful. There are many, but one of them is the one I cherish the most. So when I started de-addiction psychiatry in Ahmedabad, I think it was 2014. So when I started the practice, and alcohol was the only addiction people understood back then at that time. Because they don't consider tobacco as an addiction. Tobacco is a tradition in Gujarat. So everybody has to have tobacco. And people were very much like, why would you want to come to such a dead branch? I'm like, oh, you know, I'm investing in future. I remember one of my cases I met in 2016ish. And that was a case of cocaine addiction. With all due respects, I've taken permission from him to discuss this case whenever needed without taking his name. So it was a case of cocaine addiction. And I remember a very senior psychiatrist of Ahmedabad calling me to ask me, cocaine addiction में क्या करना होता है? I said, sir, cocaine addiction में cocaine लेना होता है. He's like, enough of sarcasm. Tell me, how do you treat a case of cocaine addiction? I said, yeah. So you dial a number, call Dr. Parth Vaishnav, you refer the case to him. I was this confident back then to my, and he's like, okay, fine. So can I send him to you? He was studying in America and he had been removed from his college because of cocaine addiction, lots of violence-related problems. 911 had to come home. He was basically an Indian origin American, but then they had to bring him here because the laws there are very different for treatment. So basically they gave up the case. They were like, oh, there is nothing left. The boy doesn't want to leave the substance, so we are not going to help him anymore. When they come here, they are like, we are trying this just because everybody told us that there is someone who practices this in Ahmedabad. As the case evolved gradually, we walked through him. So the first year was not very encouraging, but I explained them that de-addiction is a roller coaster ride. It's not like the patient always improves. He might relapse, he might again improve, again relapse. Like 3 years down the line in 2019, 20ish, I'm not sure, just before COVID, he just gave me a call in the middle of the night. I'm like, what happened? And he's like, oh, I'm at Boston. I'm like, how? He said, I secured admission in so-and-so college. And I'm like, wow. And he's like, my parents want to thank you because at one juncture everybody gave up on me, but you said that no, it's a roller coaster ride. We need to fight, and eventually the roller coaster ends someday. He's doing great. So he's a big startup in US and we're in regular touch with him. He doesn't take my treatment anymore. And I'm very happy that many a times he puts my name that I am a past person suffering from addiction related issues, but that is curable, treatable, and it's a disease. So rather than taking this as a habit or a choice, take it as a disease. And I'm like, wow, so that was a message. So what pleases me the most is 1, we could treat him. 2, he could be successful. 3, he's passing on the baton to someone else, that this is a disease and get it treated. So I think that is one of the best moments of my clients that I cherish.
How do you maintain your resilience and optimism when dealing with difficult cases?
I think you need to read a lot because every branch in medical science is a constantly evolving branch. And with the advent of Google and let's say social media, the search engines, people would come to you by searching everything online. So by the time they are on the desk, they are like, I know what you're going to prescribe to me. The major change that we can bring is we constantly update ourselves. Resilience only increases if you are sure that at any juncture, if people ask you question, you have a legitimate scientific answer. And second, if you don't, you have the humbleness to accept that fine, I'm not pretty much aware about the new developments which I've read, and I'm okay to read them more. See, any disease is at least treatable if not curable. When you take up a case, you don't feel like, you don't put the outcome in your mind that I would want to cure this patient forever. You take that case every day, like every moment you try to get through some symptoms and then some symptoms and then some symptoms. So if you take one day at a time, you go from like left to right and solve the case, you automatically get resilience to treat him. If you have an outcome in the mind that I'll treat this case good enough to go to a college or to marry someday or to have a family or earn money, so you cannot have an end point in psychiatry. And if you go one day at a time, I guess that it's pretty much that gives you resilience to treat people.
You refer Gen Z as misunderstood generation. So why misunderstood?
Somebody is stalking my Instagram. I think that Gen Z is the misunderstood generation because most of the people when they come to me, they are shouting that my son or daughter is all the time on phone and they are all the time on Instagram. They are lazy, they are not interested in studies, they are not dreaming enough, we have done so much for them. I feel that because they have so much of access to information, they gradually keep on getting things resolved in their brain of exactly what they want. And the slack that they are facing is because of the older parenting styles. Because if we go back, people thought that by comparing two children, you are doing good for one child, so that they will work harder to be better than the other child. And that is what they started doing with the Gen Z as well, that look at your friend, he's getting 100 out of 100 and you're getting only 98. I'm like, only 98? Wow, 98 is really great for me. It's misunderstood mainly because of the reason that this generation believes that we would want to be a better version of us. And I give a simple example that iPhone 10 was not bad, but iPhone 11 was an upgraded version. iPhone 11 was not bad, but iPhone 15 is a better version. So this is what the current generation feels, that me at 14 was not bad, but me at 16 wants to be better than me at 14. Me at 18 wants to be better than me at 16. The generation doesn't believe that I need to be better than them. Yeah, the Instagram did bring in some unhealthy comparisons and competition, but after the initial, avalanche of lots of mental health issues, we see a plateau that the generation now realizes that okay, we cannot meet the unrealistic standards that people set, but we'll make our own standards. So the older parenting styles or the older rules that were made, that how a child should grow to be a good child, they don't apply anymore. Like history is rewritten and it's being rewritten live right now, so people should pay attention to it. That along with this generation Z, I think every generation will learn something, and that is why I feel that they are quite misunderstood.
How has being a psychiatrist influenced your own perspective on mental health and well-being?
I think a lot. Let's put it this way. So there came up a question that how a typical day is. So I'll be very open to accept that a typical day did not used to be like this. It used to be like treating patients and reading a lot about psychiatry. That's it, and then the day ends. And overwork like 12 hours, 14 hours, and then gradually I realize that I don't think I have anything new to do in my life. There is no challenge or there is nothing that I am doing which is very special. So while explaining patients the importance of mental health or physical wellness, or let's say the use of breathing exercises, meditation, yoga, I literally learned myself that I'm not practicing many of the things that I preach to people, and in that case I'm not a good a torch bearer of this branch. So that literally changed the schedules of my day, the way I eat, the way I work, the way I physically maintain myself. Yeah, it has helped me a lot in mental health, because when you see lots of pain and then you learn the art of not reacting to pain of people around you, it does change your perception to pain as well. So when there are situations which are really painful, sad, anxious, anger, it helps us to keep a bit calmer than the person in the room, which makes you look better or mature. But yeah, we have our own melting points. When I leave my cabin, I'm a completely normal person like anybody else, and I also lose my calm when somebody smashes my new car or somebody runs over my feet with their bike, so that is pretty normal. But yeah, it changes you as a person. That, as I said, I became more patient, more calmer. And to be fair, being a psychiatrist has helped me a lot being a better father, because the older version of me, which was so aggressive and fast, aggressive as in I also wanted everything very fast and I also wanted to get things. So psychiatry helps me to be patient. So when I see my kids being impatient, I'm like, yeah, it's just because you are young, you are impatient. Doesn't make me angry. So psychiatry also makes me a better father rather than a person. I say it gives me patience and it gives me calmness to deal with their impatience basically.
Do you think the need for therapy increased after the COVID pandemic?
There was always a need for therapy. It's just that people were not approaching the right people or therapists or psychiatrists or psychologists. So therapy is a way of treating a patient through which they can understand their own personal conflicts, and by understanding them they can change their belief systems, through which they can change their emotions and behavior patterns. This is how therapy works basically. I think that COVID was a catalyst through which people started thinking that mental health needs, if not more, at least equal attention as physical health. And post COVID, if patients have like minor issues, let's say 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 1 month, 2 months of a problem, they consult an expert earlier. If you go back, like if you go till 2019, people did not consult a psychiatrist at times up to 2, 5, 10, 15 years of a problem. And post COVID, people approach a doctor faster, people are more open to treatment, and if rightly done, psychotherapy is a very good self-help tool. Psychotherapy is not a doctor or a therapist advising someone. It is more of a therapist understanding the person, their flaws, putting it on the table and giving them different ways. So I explain my clients that I can take you to crossroads of your life. On a crossroads, there are 4 ways available. You can travel on any. I cannot say which is the right or the wrong way to go. Whatever way you travel, whatever problems you face as a therapist, I'll be there with you. So that every time you take a decision, you take your decision. You don't take a decision advised by someone and then suffer the whole thing that, oh, I took a decision because the therapist thought was right for me. So yeah, people have been open. The need has not increased, the awareness has increased. And let's say from 2020 to 2040, we will be in a pandemic of mental health issues. So gradually the need would increase, and the awareness need ratio, if they match with each other, we'll have a healthier world to live.
What will be that one rule you want to change about the world if you get that power?
One rule? Patriarchy, I would say. I would always want to change patriarchy because it's funny. I live in a society where people are educated, and I would give you a very recent and a very shocking example of how the world sees the whole situation as. So it was a very random discussion where people were talking about boys and girls and how they should be raised and what they should be taught, especially after some recent developments what have been happening with women. So like one of the father of a daughter was like, I'll try to teach her taekwondo and everything, and I was like, no, we need to teach them gender neutrality. And if kids know more about gender neutrality, then this generation, when they grow up, they'll face lesser problems. And they're like, gender neutrality, matlab, what is that? So do you want to say that you're talking about homosexuality? I said, no, gender neutrality means, he said, no, I don't want to listen about all of that. You know what, I'm scared of all of these things. And I was shocked. I was like, I'm simply talking about we need to abolish patriarchy. He was like, simple shabd mein bolna yaar. I'm like, patriarchy is a way more difficult word for you to spell rather than gender neutrality. However, people don't understand this concept. Even today, pink for girls and blue for boys and car for boys and dolls for girls. And I basically believe that it never existed in our civilization. If you go back, everybody were equals. Rani Lakshmi Bai was the queen when the king died, and she was given equal or even more importance than the king himself. If you go back and look at history, there was no patriarchy. And patriarchy was an outcome of a society which needed domination. So I think that the one rule that I would always want to change is go back in everybody's mind and delete this word called patriarchy, so that we are all treated equals, A very famous psychologist from Canada called Jordan Peterson, and he's very trending on YouTube, Instagram, and he talks a lot about this, that because men work harder, they get more pay. I think that I don't work, like I don't build a brick wall, I don't construct things, I don't do physical work, right? But I still earn. So everybody and every body has a different speciality, literally. I have a brain which works better, so I use my brain and earn my money. There are people who have a body which works better, so they go, they get gold medals, they make such buildings and they make such clothes. So I think that the whole idea wherein people don't understand what is gender neutrality, I would want to change that.
Mental health still has stigma attached to it. So what do you think can be done to address it?
I think we need to talk a lot about mental health. We are still into an era where people talk a lot, but they still don't understand it. So let's put it this way. Nowadays, parents within first few weeks to months would take a child and bring them to me that, sir, he has or she has a problem. And like they are like, એને બધું એકવારમાં સમજાવી દેજો, brain wash કરી નાખજો, so that she doesn't have a problem ever again. So people do understand that there are mental health issues, but they think that it's just one talk that the solution comes. There is just one step that will change all of their lives. And this stigma is mainly because there is a confusion between mental illness and mental weakness, because everybody thinks that a mental illness is a weakness, correct? So there is nothing like mental weakness or strength. Everybody has a brain which functions differently. The earlier stigma was all about all these evil spirits and superstitions and blind faiths and gods. The current stigma is more about, oh, you know what, he is not trying enough, or oh, she is not doing great that she should be doing. But did you know that when someone is suffering from depression, the willpower dies from within. So even if they want to bring a change, they cannot. So that stigma still stays there. That lack of willpower, motivation, desire, purpose is a symptom of anxiety disorders and depression. So we are there but not there yet, wherein we are talking about mental health, but people are still confused. Okay, we are talking, now what next? Okay, there are problems, now what next? Yeah, so there are problems, and then many problems have solutions, and solutions to some problems is living with the problem. So we are not there yet, wherein people resolve their mental health issues, and that stigma still needs to be abolished.
What has been the most valuable lesson you have learned in your career?
I think you never work for money. I think you never look at the bank balance and work harder. I think that at the end of the day, if you really grow as a person, the last thing you need in your life is a materialistic thing, or let's say a costly car or a costly shirt. I think that as we grow, the most important lesson I learn is staying humble, keeping yourself at a low profile, not trying to pick up fights with people, not trying to resolve everything that is wrong around you. And a very important thing that I tell my clients is that whenever there is a problem, always remember, it is not necessary that we are always the problem or we are always the solution. Because if the world views us as that you cannot solve the problem, like, no, I cannot, because there are certain problems which cannot be solved. So I think that the lesson that I learn is I cannot solve every problem. I also learn to live with problem. And earlier problem of me of trying to be the best has changed to a point that I hope that my clients feel safe with me. They feel secure with me. They find their solitude or their peace with me. So I think that is a very big lesson that I learned from materialism to, let's say, more towards spiritualism. That life ultimately is a full circle. You live, like you don't live to enjoy every day.
Who is your mentor?
I should be saying my father, because he's really shaped where I am right now. But to be fair, I have had different mentors in different age groups. So when I was young, I loved the resilience of my grandfather. He lived a very healthy and happy life of 95 years, and the art of letting go. I still remember the way he used to face problems, but the next day is always smiling, as if nothing has happened. Not that he would avoid it, he would still be solving it. But as a kid, he would never let us know that he's still under that problem. So I think that when I was younger, he was a big time mentor and somebody who was on my mind all the time. Then as I grew, like any teenager, I grew a sports person. And then Saurav Ganguly became my like a mentor. I always dreamed of going to England on the Lords, removing my t-shirt and and there was this great show of aggression that yes, India exists and yes, we can fight. So I still remember goosebumps moment, and 4 or 5 years he stays my mentor. Then Cristiano Ronaldo was a big time mentor for me, because I still remember, and I feel that it's a battle. Who is better, Messi or Ronaldo? And I'm like, you know what? One is gifted and the other is a hard worker. And I still prefer the hard worker because I was never gifted. And I think that I always reached where I am with hard work. So for a very long period of time, Ronaldo was a mentor. Dhoni has to be a mentor for everyone. It's like it's not Indian if Dhoni was never your mentor. And now I am trying to become someone that I feel I'm a mentor to my future self. So basically I'm at that juncture of my life and I'm trying to become someone that at 40 I can feel, or at 45 I can think, or at 50 I can think that 38-year-old Parth is my mentor right now because doing the right things. So yeah, let's say an umbrella of him, my father is my mentor, but then a different mentor at a different age group in my life has always been there.
Your father and your wife both are in the same field. So when you are stressed out, whom do you go to? Them or anyone else?
Yeah, so now I go to my kids because I think that innocence gives you maximum peace. And they are the only people who don't know that I am a psychiatrist, or that I had a bad day or a good day, or that I had a fight with a patient, or I am not doing good, ill. Because every time I go, they are ready with a very warm hug. And that hug means everything to you at the end of the day, that somebody unconditionally is waiting for you. But yeah, it depends on the sort of a problem. In a very intricate emotional problem, I would always want to go to my wife because I think that she understands me a lot. And so we know each other way back. We have studied all our MBBS days together. So it's been more than 20 years that we know each other. In any problem that I know I cannot solve, I'm very happy that I have someone who is a bigger problem solver than me. So I'll always go to my father for that. For any social support system, I would prefer to go to my mom. She's a great social support system to me. And then I have friends. So I believe that nobody should depend on one person as a go-to person. I think that you should have different people for different situations to go to, because as humans, it's very obvious that you will fight with people and your own people. You don't fight with strangers, like, correct? You won't fight with me right now. But if you know me more, you will definitely fight with me because that is the sort of person I am. So you fight with your own people. If that one person is the source of every sort of a solution for you, then you are screwed. Then you cannot get out of the problem at all. So I think that we all need to learn the art of distributing our emotional baggage to different people. That way, if you really fall into a problem, like if you have a problem with your dad, you need to talk with your mom about it, right? So that makes sense to me.
One parenting rule which you always follow.
Oh, no screens to be used in front of my kids. I see to it that except for any sort of a patient emergency, they don't see me using a screen. That is the first rule. Second, I see to it that they look at me the way I do physical fitness, because I think that parents do become a source of modeling, or let's say a source of inspiration for their kids, and physical and mental health fitness is so important. So I think these are the two things that I try to let them see in me so that they learn something. Of all the bad that they have seen in me, I hope that these two things they remember always.
So now we have a very entertaining segment called Quit Bit. जैसे कि करण जौहर के शो में रैपिड फायर होता है. So basically you have to answer as whatever comes first in your mind. What's your USP?
Oh, that was not immediate answer, right? Oh, okay. My USP would be hope someday mental health is better than physical health.
Street food or fine dine?
Fine line.
Morning bird or night owl?
A morning part.
Time travel to the past or future?
Present.
A day with no technology or no social interaction?
No technology.
And common advice you always give to your patients?
I just said that if you are patient enough, you won't be a patient anymore. So that's the most common advice I tell to people. And the idea that any problem, if it doesn't have a solution, death is not the answer. There are certain problems you learn to live with. So a very important thing I try to put forward to people, because we'll see lots of suicides nowadays and many people think that suicide is a solution. No, suicide is itself a problem. So I see to it that every people who are younger than 18, I have a talk about death, suicide, problem, solution, living with problem. So that is one envelope I forcibly push forward to people.
One person yet to meet in your lifetime?
I want to meet Rafael Nadal.
One of the experience you will cherish your whole life?
Oh, my professor or the head of the department praising me for the person that I am rather than the student I am.
Advice to your younger self?
So many, so many. And it's so easy to advise your younger self, but I would always say that you're gonna make it big, don't worry.
Place of your silent zone?
Oh, so I have a place in my house where I sit there and nobody comes there. So that's a place of my silent zone. And to be fair, it's my kids' toy room, basically.
Favorite cricketer?
The current generation, Virat Kohli.
Activities in me time?
Cycling. I love cycling.
One quote which inspire you the most.
I feel that quotes are gyan, and I think that gyan is only for social media.
3 positive words starting from letter P.
Parth, Parth is positive, Parth is very positive.
Okay, that's it. Any piece of advice for us?
Oh no, you people are great people. I've not seen so much of confidence in people of your age, and I hope that what you are doing, you keep on doing it and keep on becoming a better version of what you are. I'm very happy to have interacted with you. Thank you so much.
First of all, we'd like to convey our gratitude by thanking our school Divyapath campus and the teachers for providing us such a big platform and opportunity. And thank you, sir, for sharing your insights today. It's been incredibly enlightening to hear your perspective on mental health and psychiatry. Your expertise and experience has truly given us a lot to think about. We really appreciate you taking your time to speak with us. And thank you for being a part of Heroes of Ahmedabad Season 2. Have a great day and all the best with all your future work, sir. Thank you.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much.